Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Thursday, the 10th day of November, 2011. Joining us, we're going to have BBC/ABC reporter, investigative journalist Greg Palast joining us to look at the state of the world, the global economic meltdown in hindsight, because back in 2002, he got the leaked IMF World Bank documents where the mega banks were planning to implode the West just like a third world country. And, of course, that's the final chapter in my now out-of-print book, Descent into Tyranny, predicting everything that then took place via those documents. The book's not out of print digitally. It's available at prisonplanet.tv. Once you're a member, you can find it there. And incidentally, we're running a 15-day free trial right now at prisonplanet.tv, where this entire radio show, all 3 hours, is transmitted daily. The entire video, 5-camera shoot element. And then, of course, the nighttime show, 7 o'clock Central, at prisonplanet.tv as well for prisonplanet.tv members. But I'm now digressing off into that area. George Soros is running around profiting off the Euro meltdown. We've got Gardasil victims taking legal action against Merck over miscarriage and deadly reactions, including deaths. Doesn't matter, they've been given government immunity now. UK Foreign Office, Israel expected to attack Iran next month. Rick Perry virtually ends his own presidential campaign with major debate gaffe. I should have covered this last week. Jaron had all these clips of Perry in speeches, not knowing really who he was and going, hey, dude. Jaron called me late at night, or about 8 o'clock at night, and says, you got to watch these clips tomorrow. We got to play them. And then he showed me some of the clips. I never got around to it, where he was like, dude. And Jaron's like, it's like he's on Prozac or something. It's like he's drunk. And you see Perry without a teleprompter just going, like he's going crazy. I think he's had a mental breakdown. It's one thing all the time to be on air and say, there's 3 agencies. Darn it, you ever forget something? But instead, he's like, I don't know. What is it? And then he couldn't. Then suddenly he tried to say all 3 again. He could only say one. Then went, oh, fudgely dudge. I don't know nothing. And Perry wasn't like this just 6 months ago. George W. Bush gave pretty good speeches in Texas. His hair was brown. He was annoying, a liar, wicked, but he could speak. He was a decent speaker, not great. As soon as he became president, or even when he was running, it was suddenly making up all these weird words. And, of course, Obama without a teleprompter is a bumbling idiot as well. It's because these guys are total and complete puppets. Plus, they're always being fed all their lines and what they're supposed to say. And without a teleprompter, they just go to pieces. Now, all of that is a side issue compared to the plans to strike Iran and what that's going to do. I want to get more into that today, the huge sell-off in the stock market yesterday. But I have waited 4 days, really 5 days, to talk about the Penn State issue. And I'm going to cover that first when we come back from break, because it illustrates everything I'm talking about. How people are naive, they're gullible, especially when it comes to big, powerful institutions. And so that's where evil predators go, because intelligent predators know that in government, in big institutions, in big corporations, they can get away with more because nobody wants to see the organization go down. Believe me, it's coming out. The police knew. Everybody knew. Of course, folks, this is definitely a child rape ring. I mean, so's pretty much everything. I mean, it is Thursday, the 10th day of November 2011. And I think a lot of you probably noticed that I've talked very little about Herman Cain in the last few weeks during this big scandal with all these women coming out saying that he basically sexually harassed them, groped them, implied that if they would give him sexual favors, he would advance them. Now, he sounds very credible in his response, but the problem is he sounded credible when he told Ron Paul, "How dare you say I call your supporters dumb? I never said that. That's an internet rumor. Get your facts straight," and laughed at Ron Paul. We have the clips of him on radio and in his book saying exactly that. And let me tell you, I mean, he's a better liar than Bill Clinton. When he said that, I knew I had those clips during that debate a few weeks ago, but I had to go back and pull them up to make sure, because he is one of the best liars I have ever seen. Now, that said, one woman worked for Axelrod. Some of the others constantly file these complaints. It's a business for some women out there. Certainly, I've got a wife and 2 daughters, and you know, my grandmother, my mother. I don't like women being harassed. I know there's pigs out there that do it. But in the final equation, I haven't really covered this because it is a distraction. War with Iran is imminent. A lot of people are trying to stop it from happening. Now it's admitted Israel plans to hit them at the beginning of next month. They've backed it off. That may not happen, but I've got the stack of news, British news, U.S. news, Israeli Knesset saying the green light's on, we're doing it. That, I mean, folks, do you know what's going to happen if Iran is attacked? They're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices will probably double or triple. Some estimates are 5 times what they are now. Iran has now come out and said they will strike all over the world. They have said that they will strike all over the world with asymmetrical special forces teams. Every major government trains troops to do this, sleeper cells. And the globalists won't have to stage any terror attacks. They'll be able to take everybody's liberties, distract you from the big banks raping everybody, all the corruption, the cashless society, mark of the beast stuff, because they start a war with Iran. Iran strikes back with guerrilla warfare. And now you know why they're getting the highway checkpoints ready. And now you know why they're getting all this prepared. And even the Jerusalem Post, Haaretz, have reported that Netanyahu wants this war so he'll get politically reelected. And the neocons have told Obama, get behind this war and you'll get reelected. We'll leave you alone. What do you think Obama's going to do with Fast and Furious on his tail? Shipping the guns into Mexico, the drugs back into the U.S. Oh, yeah, that's in several big papers, Chicago Tribune, El Paso Times, not getting national coverage. The Attorney General Holder blamed the Second Amendment. He said, pass gun control, and this won't happen anymore. Mexico has a total gun ban. Our government shipping the guns in. He blames our Second Amendment for what he did. I told you he'd do that. All of these huge things are happening, and we're talking about Herman Cain. Why not talk about Herman Cain and his support of the Federal Reserve, his support of new taxes? Why not talk about Herman Cain working for the Pillsbury family and Skull and Bones? Why not talk about his attacks on Ron Paul? Why not talk about how he's another establishment insider like Rick Perry, Mitt Romney, all these guys? I mean, Mitt Romney on record is for abortion, gun control, open borders, amnesty cities, carbon global warming taxes. Al Gore praises him. Wrote Obamacare. This is on record, and he's the Republican frontrunner. I don't know who's stupider. Obama supporters supporting him, believing he was going to give you free houses and free cars like his idiot supporters thought. Didn't know he was bought and paid for by the big 6 megabanks that are running the New World Order. Or you Republicans, because the media tells you Rick Perry's the leader for the last 6 months. You go, well, he's better than Obama. Really? Really? With Obama, we know what we've got. With Rick Perry, because he's white and has, I guess, a good haircut and wears a nice suit, looks like a Ken doll, like a mannequin at Dillard's or something, or Macy's, then he looks like a guy in a Esquire article, you know, in a wristwatch ad. I mean, you can go get any wristwatch model of the distinguished 50-something-year-old male or whatever, and just, I guess, make them president. It doesn't matter what their policies are. It doesn't matter what they stand for. Oh, Ron Paul, he's got black circles under his eyes because he works 18 hours a day at 76 years old and jogs every morning and exercises and eats like a bird and is totally right about everything and a constitutionalist and a godsend for this country. We don't need him because he doesn't look like a Ken doll. He can't make baskets like Obama. He isn't slick in his Harvard, educated suit and everything. Ron Paul doesn't need to read off a teleprompter. We don't want him. We don't want someone real. No. I mean, I hate to use a Christ analogy. They used that with Obama and said he's like the Christ. Remember that? He's like Jesus. You can look that up. But it shows people don't want the good. They want the bad sometimes. It's like Christ. Pilate says, I find nothing wrong in this man. And he says, okay, it's this holiday. You're allowed to release somebody on this day. Crowd, who do you want to release? And they said, give us Barabbas, some rapist, murderer, criminal, miscreant, dirtball, psychopath. Give us Barabbas. That's who we want. Give us Obama. Give us Rick Perry. Give us Mitt Romney. Give us Herman Cain. Give it to us. Give us Adolf Hitler. Give us Stalin. Give it to us. It's what we want. Why do they always marvel that women like men that abuse them and act tough and treat them like trash? At least some women do. The so-called bad guy, the tough guy. Not somebody that'll actually take care of their children, that'll actually provide for them. It's a sickness in this society. Now, I'm going to get into all this world news and the economy, which is huge, and we got guests coming up. But now, I will spend some time on Penn State. Now, I waited to really talk about this. I don't know, on Monday and Tuesday, I said this is going to go much deeper than just one football coach, because I've seen this before. And I said the Texas Youth Commission on record, even when the Texas Rangers found out about it and blew the whistle, it was covered up. And it's come out in state hearings that at youth commissions all over the state of Texas, it's all over the country too, they have children ages 6, 7, 8 up to 17, and that the parking lot fills full of the pedophile rings, police, judges, mayors, corporate people, and they go in and they have sex with the young prisoners. I mean, I've been in juvenile twice for fighting before they figured out I didn't start the fight because somebody was hurt. You go to jail. And of my 2 times, one time the guard tried to get me in the shower and said, come to the time for your shower. Said, take your clothes off, sitting there licking his lips. And I said, and he started reaching out at me. And I said, listen, you're not going to get away with this, pal. And he said, get back in your cell then. I mean, he thought I was just some little meek person that he was going to do this to. And I told him. They're in Terrell, Texas, up on top of that courthouse is where the juvenile was. I said, you're going to get, I told him, I said, you do this, my dad's going to kill you 100%. And of course, I would have done something as well. I mean, I was in there for beating somebody into a coma. And I'm sitting there looking at the guy, and I'm like, this isn't a joke, pal. That's what this country's run by. I keep telling you, it's run by pedophile rings. How many Republicans get caught in bathrooms with other men? They go to Bohemian Grove on record and have sex with each other. Vanity Fair snuck in there years after I did and found the same thing. People magazine. That's what goes on there. Richard Nixon told Harper's Magazine, it's the most GD, faggy thing you'll ever see. You can pull up Richard Nixon on Bohemian Grove. Harper's got accused after he died of, back in the 70s interview, that they'd made up that because they didn't publish the rest of it until after he died. And they just said, oh, here's the audio of Nixon. God, the Bohemian Grove. Yeah, they're at San Francisco and they're up north of there. I'll tell you what goes on there. It's unbelievable. I went for political power, but it's terrible. Listen, why do you think they want sex education of 5th graders? And I've seen the books. I mean, federally, they're trying to pass it now that it has to be taught everywhere, where they actually teach 5- and 6-year-olds with books showing 2 men kissing, 2 women kissing, a man and a woman kissing. I mean, 5-year-olds aren't even thinking about sex. 10-year-olds aren't even thinking about it. I mean, they're innocent. They want to run around and play hide and seek. They want to play with paints. They want to play video games. They want to. I mean, they're not. But you go to school, and they just sit there and throw it at you, and all the studies show it. The more condoms they hand out, the more people get pregnant, the more sex, the more disease. Because it just says go ahead and do it, and then they don't know how to put a condom on, or it breaks, or whatever. They know what they're doing. It's a way for the government. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old son. I haven't even talked to him about sex yet. He's not interested. He doesn't care. It's not some big hang-up. He's reading history books and stuff. I mean, I guess we've been out at the farm and, seen cows and stuff, but it's more just scientific. Yes, they mate, and then it's no big deal. We don't make it some big hang-up. So he's not, but see, they want to take your 5-year-old and force this into him. Why do you think? It's now coming out. It's confirmed. I have all the mainstream news admitting it, that the police knew back in the mid-90s. They knew all about it. Everybody was upset about it. Everybody knew. And here's the key when we come back. The degenerate students, the wholly wicked, and of course, I don't even like to judge these people, but they don't care about all these victims. They want their stupid coach back, who is an accessory. Nobody's saying he's an accessory. He knew about this decades ago and let it continue along with the head of the university. If you're watching on prisonplanet.tv, you see what looks like a cryptic photo of the Penn State coach. And the headline, New Shock Charges in Penn State Case. And that was what I was about to get to next. What did I say on Monday and Tuesday when people asked me about this and called in? I said, the Texas Youth Commission, it came out that they had gladiatorial fights with the older kids, with all the elitists coming in all over the state and watching them fight, in some cases, with weapons in boxing rings. That was in the news, but then it all got shut down. And that government officials, big donors, rich people, judges, and see what happens is once they know you're a pedophile and you've done this publicly with the elites, now they can promote you into the power structure because they know they can destroy you anytime they want. And it turns out the police knew about this more than 15 years ago. I have the timeline right here. And it turns out 9 years ago, there was a grand jury dealing with this, and it was always shut down until now. This is being brought out now to threaten the entire power structure, just like the Herman Cain thing. They always give you sex scandals and missing, dead interns and all of this right before wars. As a huge distraction, tailor-made. They've got all these sex scandals right there. They kept it quiet as the victims continue to mount. And who was it? Disadvantaged children getting to go to the Penn State with the coaches who were going to mentor them. And now what's the new reports? That the coach, who all these people say they witnessed doing this, Sandusky, headline, Drudge is linking to it, pimped out young boys to rich donors. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't just think he was brazenly in there, allegedly. But there's all these police reports, all this stuff going way back, and the cover-up's clear. In there, in the shower, in a quasi-public area doing this on his own. You think the feds pay for a decade to put cameras in school bathrooms and in girls' showers? And they with a straight face go, well, we're the government. We can watch your naked daughters. And they share it all over the country. That's come out in the news. This, at the top, it's a bunch of criminals. And the most common group is pedophiles. Then it's closeted gay men, so they can use that on them. Then it's just hardcore sadists. And then just mercenaries that want money. But it is a legion of evil. A legion of doom. And by the way, tonight, I'm going to do a report, and then we'll air it tomorrow here on the radio, where we're going to give you a bunch of examples. Mainstream articles about Bohemian Grove, about the gay sex orgies, about the gay porn stars flown in as the private jets land and disgorge them, taking them in limos right into the world leaders. mainly Republican leaders. You wonder why every Republican that ever gets the nomination wants big government, gun control, open borders? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they're compromised. Type in Washington Times, White House callboy scandal. In fact, it'll actually show it. Washington Times, White House callboy scandal. Underage callboys with the credit card receipts, hundreds of visits during the Reagan and Bush Sr. administration. That's not me. That's the news. And then we have, under Bush, the gay madam in the press corps and bringing in all these men. Hundreds of after-midnight visits. Again, as Nixon said, even though he reportedly never engaged in any of this, even according to insiders, he still had to go and sit there in the middle of it to be accepted and become governor, California president. Or lose for governor of California and then become president. So show the Drudge Report again and then click on that article for me. It's all over the news here. Business Insider and others. Jerry Sandusky pimped out young boys to rich donors. And you click on the headline. You can see that at drudgereport.com. We also have it up at Infowars.com. There it is at Rivals.com. Penn State scandal. Rumor claims he pimped out boys to rich donors. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got the timeline here. We're going to cover this when we come back. Again, people ask, how does this evil get away with it? Once people get into positions of incredible power over billion-dollar organizations, be it universities, government, major corporations, over institutions, they knowingly engage in crimes and get others involved who just know, like the head coach and the president and others of the university, so then they can compromise them on every issue. It's called a corruption. It's not corruption, a corruption, a corrupting. Okay? And it turns out the police knew about this 15 years ago and covered it up. Of course they did. Of course they did. You know, a lot of times I refuse to cover the big national stories if I think it's a bunch of fluff. I'll give a brief comment like I've done on Herman Cain. But you can't prove what's happening to Cain one way or the other, and there's a lot of dirt on both sides. I think he comes off very credible, but the guy came off credible saying Ron Paul was wrong about him attacking Ron Paul supporters and folks that want to audit the Fed when he's on record on TV, radio, and in print saying it. And, I mean, he's probably the best liar I've ever seen. So I just don't go there. I know where he stands on issues. We don't need the federal government involved in sales taxes and VAT, and they're going to keep all the other taxes. That's why I don't like Herman Cain. On issues I can prove, not on a bunch of witch hunts. And let me tell you, these Democratic operative women, every one of them's got connections to it that I've seen, and it stinks to high heaven. So I haven't covered that. But on this Penn State situation, I've been busy looking at what's happening in Iran, busy looking at what's happening economically. Everybody who researches what's happening in the world is really freaked out right now. Everybody feels a disturbance in the force, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say, or as the Bible would say, a disturbance in the spirit. My discernment is just, alarm bells are going off. And always they have these type of scandals that are brought forward and triggered. So you got to ask yourself, well, A, I'm going to cover this because it illustrates the way the world really works on so many points of the compass. It's a window into the real world, into denial, into powerful groups, into cover-ups, into group psychology, into tribalism, into media, and into why has it been triggered now. I have the timeline here. It goes back to 1994 at least. And it turns out the police knew as of 1998, and the university pressured them. The reporters all got threatened. I mean, this is all in the news now. And they were able to cover up, and this guy was able to continue. And here's an even bigger issue. I am hearing sports writers, because I've been following this now more closely the last few days because it's such an incredible window into how the real world works, as I just said. They are actually saying we've got to continue the season. We have, the coach shouldn't have been fired, the head coach. And this big mob, I'll play a clip in a minute, of students saying, bring back the coach, one more game. They're not even worried about the fact that there's a university. All of their board should be gone that was part of this. The president, it's not enough. All of them. All of the coaches, undoubtedly. I mean, listen, if I was a coach and I walked into the shower and I saw somebody raping a 10-year-old child, number one, I would stomp the living hell out of them, excuse me. I mean, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, who wouldn't? I'm not some macho guy. It's clobbering time. That guy's going to have a broken jaw and his nose is going to be hanging off. I'm going to have blood coming out of my fist. I'm going to be hitting him so hard I'm splitting my knuckles. But you know what? I realize this, and my wife's a witness to it, and I'm nothing special. Everybody came up and said, you're a hero. I was in La Madeline 8 years ago. My son was about 2. So 8.5 years ago or so. And this woman with her family starts choking. I'm in the bathroom, and I hear yelling. I go to wash my hands. I come back out, and there's a woman with all these people standing around saying, dial 911, and she's turning blue. It's been going on about a minute while I've been in there. And I say, give her the Heimlich. Who knows how to do it? Of course, I took it when just a little junior fire department thing, not a full certification, when I was on swim team the 4th year, when I was like 13. Last year I did it. I should have stayed in it, man. But the point is that I had to then start going, well, excuse me. And they were going, no, wait for police. Dial 911. Everybody's dialing 911. And I said, it'll take them on average 12 minutes to get here. And I have to shove them, and somebody starts shoving on me. And I get over to the woman. She's now on the table, purple. This has been going on a minute and a half. Okay? And they're going, how dare you? Oh, my God, you're going to hurt her. And she's somewhat overweight. She probably weighed 200 pounds. And I stand her up. I get her up. And I do the Heimlich. Do it once, do it twice, to do it hard. She goes, bleh, and a big ball of bread with a little bit of vomit comes out. And she goes, and she's like, oh, and everybody's like, oh, you're a hero. Stay here. And I knew this was a bunch of ninnies. I'd probably get sued if I broke her rib or something, because I had to really pick her up. And I was like, get out of here. We're not even going to finish eating. Let's go. My wife's like, why not? They're like, you're a hero. You're a hero. This was demonic ninnies. I had to get out of there. So I don't understand it. I mean, I walk into a shower. Somebody's got a 10-year-old bent over, raping them. I mean, I am going to stomp the daylights out of you. I'd be uncontrolled. I guarantee you, once I got you on the ground, you're going to get stomps. I mean, you're going to get stomped. Stomped from the feet right up to the head, like a kangaroo. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, yeah, you're probably not going to live. And so the issue here is that's what my instinct says. That's my gut. I walk around a corner into a shower and somebody's raping a kid. You're going to be lucky if I don't kill you. Okay? I don't understand this culture now where they say 1 out of 10 people will rush in during an emergency. That's why I admire firefighters, the men and women of firefighting. I admire police. I'll be honest with you. The profession of a peace officer, charging in against criminals, charging into danger, that's what humanity's all about. That's why it's so evil it's been corrupted. They haven't corrupted the firefighters yet, and God bless them, and I contribute to them and give the volunteer fire departments as much as I can. They're just great men and women. And they're trying to turn them into spies against the people. It makes me so sick. But the fact that for, I don't know, what's 94 to 2011? How many is that, 16 years? 17 years? How long is it? 17 years. And this shows how corruption works, how in mobs of people, I'm sure a very small percentage of them were involved in the raping of children. But they knew, and then for the system, they cover it up. And that's how the big mega banks work, stealing tens of trillions. That's how derivatives work. That's how this plausible deniability works. That's how this corruption works, where the average citizen doesn't put their inspection sticker on a ½ inch to the right spot. You get the book thrown at you. Or citizens do things that really aren't even illegal but are regulatory go to jail. And the system throws the book at us, microphones in the lamps post listening to us, face scanning cameras, total corruption, and the Attorney General's on record perjuring himself about shipping guns into Mexico and bringing drugs into the U.S., and Janet Napolitano's been caught doing it. They've all been caught doing it. And I understand people who aren't evil find this hard to believe because you're naive. Good people have a blind spot. Believe me. I had a blind spot when I was 11 years old and got off the bus, and the cool 14, 15-year-old said, hey, come play in the fort with us in the woods, and then beat the living snot out of me. But see, I had a wake-up call. I thought all the cops were the best people in the world growing up till I saw cops dealing drugs where I grew up. But you got to grow up sometime. You know what I mean? Because being naive, thinking it's cool to be naive, behaving like that is what allows a Nazi Germany or a Soviet Russia or a communist China or an authoritarian Pol Pot or Ceausescu or any of these scum. People think they can decide to not believe something. I have people tell me that all the time. Intelligent people, they go, I choose not to believe that. And I go, but look at the facts. I'm not looking at it. I hear what you're saying. I just can't believe that. And it's the same thing I've talked about in criminology. I study criminology a lot because it's a window into human activity. And all of us are a little criminal at some level. It's called sin. It's called aberrant behavior. All of us, you know, have some type of bad side. Just with some people, it's all they are. And people always go, he was such a nice old man, when they find 25 bodies buried in their basement. Or she was such a nice lady, when they find, you know, dead kids buried in her basement or whatever. People can't ever believe this. And when you get a big institution like a university, when you get a big institution like a big church or international church, or you get a big institution like the Boy Scouts, or a big institution like the state police, or a big institution like the local police, or a big institution like a college or the federal government, you create a system where smart criminals and deviants know they can get away with things, because once they have power in that position, people are scared to go after them. They can corrupt other people by just letting them know about it, and then now they're accessories. And they know that the system is geared towards defending that power structure. And we've got this video clip. When I saw this last night, I was driving home at about 10 o'clock, and I heard it on the radio on XM. And I got home, and I went online and found the clip. It was on CNN. And I went over to ESPN to see the full other, more expanded coverage online. And there was people basically at the verge of rioting, screaming, you've got to bring back Joe Paterno. You've got to let him finish the season. And then this morning, driving in, I'm listening to press conferences on MSNBC, and they've all with hushed breath, is the game's going to continue? You're not going to cancel? Oh, my God, how are the team handling this? Who cares about the team? Who cares about stupid football? You see, this is why we're so sick. People care so much about games. They don't care about little kids getting raped. They care so much about all these things we've been trained to put our self-image, our worth, our identity into that don't matter. I mean, look at it. It's some old man, 84 years old, all about him and, oh, my gosh, what his career and all this, and what's going to happen to the team, what's going to happen to Penn State, oh, my gosh, the donors. It's sycophantic what we have become as a culture. And of course reports are going to come out about donors in there. Anyone who is reportedly, and the evidence is overwhelming, reportedly raping children in a field house bathroom. This is what these psychos do. In criminology, when they get in these positions of power, they do it more and more out in the open, more and more in your face. That's why psychos taunt the police about their next crime and how the police are stupid. They want to be caught subconsciously. They want to flaunt what they're doing. It's all about the ego trip. And, of course, he was so confident. He was reportedly over 17 years doing this, knowing the school was going to cover it up. Knowing that the minute the head coach didn't go to the police, the minute the president of the university didn't go to the police, he had them as accessories. And I'm sure it goes much deeper than that. And I said earlier in the week, this is probably going to be like the Texas Youth Commission, where good men in the Texas Rangers found out that a bunch of pedophiles work at these facilities and were even bringing their friends in. And they tried to stop it, and they tried to suppress the Texas Rangers. They leaked it. The head of the state police leaked it. And you saw the legislature got rid of the head of the state police in Texas. And the state police 10 years ago were nice, were friendly, wouldn't violate your rights. Now they love to come over to you in many areas, especially the Capitol, treat you like a piece of trash. The whole culture's changed because the state perverts in the legislature, I went down there and bullhorned them during the storming the TSA thing and said, I know a bunch of you are pedophiles and perverts that are being blackmailed. I went into Perry's office and said, these are the reports, these are the rumors. And that, is that why you won't stand up for what's right? Perry is having a meltdown right now. He can't even hardly talk. It's not just at that debate last night. Jaron noticed it last week and played me the clips where he doesn't even know who he is. My gut tells me that he's on a bunch of medication. He looks different than he looked just 6 months ago, and that people are threatening to bring stuff out on him, and I think he's been told it's going to be brought out. Just as something to throw on the fire as well. Oh, we got Paterno over here in Penn State. We got Herman Cain. We got Rick Perry. All of this before the system gets ready to hit Iran. And certain elements that want to hit Iran are saying, you see what we're doing at Penn State and with Herman Cain. You saw what we did with the Democratic governor in New York who passed a law to take John's assets while he was visiting hookers almost every night. We got all of you under surveillance, and if you got any dirt on your fingernails, it's coming out. Comprende? 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 Comprende. You get it? You comprehend it? Do you understand it? I know I do. I know exactly what's going on here. I know exactly why Rick Perry looks like he's been run over by a truck. I know exactly. I mean, that's what he looks like, Wile E. Coyote, after a rock's fallen on him. He's been flattened and he gets up with stars around his head. Because when you're nothing but a narcissist built up on your image and you don't care about humanity, you're not tied into God, you're not tied into love, you're not tied into honor, when you're a political whore and you stop going up that golden staircase towards what you believe is heaven and you start seeing your fortunes fall, you have nothing. The wicked flee when none pursue. So, for all of you out there that wonder about conspiracies and wonder about corruption and wonder about evil, here's another example of how they kept the Manhattan Project secret for 5 years with hundreds of thousands involved. How they kept Gulf of Tonkin secret that it was a staged government event for 40 years. How they kept the Tuskegee experiment shooting black men up with syphilis secret for 40 years. They decided to tell you. How all this stuff, they just throw it in your face. Operation Northwoods was kept secret for decades. And this was known by the FBI, by the state police, by the grand juries since the mid-90s and was in grand jury in 2002. This was known. This was known and never in the national news because it wasn't time to bring it out right now. Congress is being told you will destroy your political careers, you will let the super Congress bankrupt America, you will bring in the world government, you will set up the TSA checkpoints, or we know about that cocktail waitress you dated 20 years ago, Congressman, and we're going to bring up the photos and everything to your wife, and we got her ready to come forward. Here's the photographs. But that's the ones that aren't that bad. There's very few like Ron Paul who've done nothing. So then who lived really pious lives. Then they go to others and they say, you like to go to those parties with the 5-year-olds? You like to get those videos, the snuff film videos? Senator, you do exactly what we say, or this is going to be released right now. And don't think we won't do it. Look at our other operations. Hey, back when you were in Congress, that intern died in your office. Don't worry. Come to work for us, and we'll take care of you. we'll give you a job on MSNBC. Hey, Gov, we know a lot more than just about your hookers. You want a job on MSNBC? Hey, you can join us or we'll destroy you. How's that sound? Okay? Now steal all the pension funds. We'll be right back. So, Joe Paterno, the icon of goodness and wholesomeness since the mid-1990s, was told by the head of the university and others to keep his mouth shut about what was happening, and the raping of children reportedly continued. You couldn't get me to shut up about that for $80 trillion. My soul, there's no price tag on it. And people are like, wow, that's really moral of you. Would you sell your eyes for $1 billion and be blind? Most people wouldn't. Only morons would. Well, if the eyes are so precious, they're just windows of the soul. What about your very being? What about who you are? I mean, I get guilty about eating too much, and every once in a while, if I slam my finger in a door using profanity, because I want to be a good person, because I know I'm a fallen creature. But I can't imagine these people that could know such evils are going on, and to watch these students sign themselves on to the evil. They're young, they don't know, but they are certainly on a path of wickedness. And it shows how divorced from reality they are, that they ran around in a near riot for hours, the Associated Press reports. We have a video clip of it, demanding that the coach be brought back. And, I mean, this is insane. Out of respect to the families, out of the fact that we don't know how high this cover-up goes, now they're reporting that donors may be involved, you know, with the kids being hired out. Of course, they had all these charity events for kids. How many times you hear about the charity head for kids programs being a pedophile? Where do you think they go? How many truancy officers turn out being pedophiles? How many school teachers? Look, how many Boy Scout leaders? Boy Scouts are one of the best things in America. It's great. It's Americano. But you got to be honest about who wants to go try to take it over. And you got to route this stuff out. That this is a modern sickness. And they're trying to sexualize our children as young as 5 years of age in the public schools and teach them about sex, period. It's wrong. It's wrong. And it's all sold as people's civil rights. It is pure evil. And that's why you're going to see more and more of this, because we have a demonic pedophile sex cult at every level of this government. I've studied it. I'm going to do a report on it tonight, 7 o'clock, with a bunch of examples, prisonplanet.tv. We'll air the report tomorrow here as well. So I'm going to do it live tonight, and they're getting all the stuff together right now to really show you the full spectrum of this. Let's go ahead and go to this video clip. Here it is. Here are the students. A near riot. Bring back Joe. One more game. That's what the news reports they were chanting. And you know, I shouldn't say near riot. They flipped over in a news truck, vandalized some stuff, broke some windows out reportedly. So I guess it is a riot. Well, I tell you, if that was a couple thousand people peacefully trying to assemble just to talk about freedom, they'd have riot cops there shotgunning them with rubber bullets. Hi, officer. Don't we have a First Amendment? Boom! But you want to go out and say, give us our football game. Oh, man, yeah, for a football coach. People are questioning whether he should have lost the rest of the season. Of course he should be. He should be indicted as an accessory and an accomplice to the original crimes and the ongoing crimes, and so should every one of the university officials involved. But don't hold your breath, because not in the Texas Youth Commission, not in the Vatican, not anywhere. This world is ruled by pot-bellied pedophiles. All right, Greg Palast is coming up for about 30 minutes after the break. BBC reporter broke down, didn't predict, but got the documents on the economic crisis happening today, 2002, broke it all down with us here on air. We'll get his take on a host of other issues. He's got a new book out. Then we'll take calls from about 45 after to the bottom of the next hour when Eddie Craig, former Nacogdoches Sheriff's deputy, talk show host in his own right, who really knows the law, and he can really break down all the illegal stuff and unconstitutional stuff the police are doing, the courts are doing, and pretty much their total ignorance of it. And we're going to have him back for a full hour in the near future. It's just we keep procrastinating about getting him in. I'm a fan of his research and his work, and it dovetails with my limited research that dwarfs most people's, but that's just because most people know nothing about their rights or courts or procedure or any of it. So he's going to be joining us. He's having a lot of success in court cases around the state and just really is helping people. There's a lot of patriot mythology out there, but I like to get Larry Becraft on, lawyer, who's won major national cases at the Supreme Court, you name it. I like to, years ago, get, what's his name? I'm having a Rick Perry moment. George Gordon, great guy. I like to have real people on. Stuart Rhodes, he's Princeton lawyer, top of his class. He's got the case right now for Rob Deuce, who in Pittsburgh, they just arrested him. Rob's up on a hilltop videotaping the peaceful students being arrested because nobody's allowed outside under martial law. And they come up and arrest him and then strap him down out in the rain all night at the prison and all the other stuff they did. So you're being sued. They don't care. They took out a $3 million insurance policy with these law firms, knowing they were going to violate a bunch of rights. They don't care. It's your tax money they're using to destroy this country. And police should worry about violating somebody's rights, because every time you do that, you chip out more of the foundation you're standing on, your family's standing on. I mean, if you're allowed to run over people's rights, do you think that's not going to blow back on you? Do you think other people aren't going to do that to you? I see a lot of reports of cops, firefighters, government people having houses they've paid for taken, even when they have the deed. Oh, see, nobody gave you a little special get out of New World Order free card, huh? No. You see, karma, reap what you sow, whatever you want to call it, what comes around goes around. What you do unto others is going to end up happening to you. That's why you want to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But it's real simple. I use the swimming pool analogy. If everybody started using the local swimming pool as a urinal or as a toilet, it would get pretty gross pretty quick, wouldn't it? So it's kind of like if you go to the bathroom in the pool, you're like, ha, 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 nobody knows I'm doing this. Well, everybody else is doing that too. That's why those city pools, I won't swim in them. It's basically swimming in a giant toilet bowl. And that's an example of society. It's an example of litter. One person throws out litter, the other person throws out litter. Pretty soon everybody's throwing out litter, and you've got a disaster on your hands. It's the same thing with corruption. It's all just violate this person's rights. Cops have pulled me over before. They can look, there's no criminal record. They can going 5 miles, 10 miles up the speed limit. They come up, I'm polite. They say, mind if I search the car? And I'm like, do you mind if I search your house? Do you mind if I destroy everything this country stands for? Do you mind if I steal your children's future? Oh, don't threaten my children. I'm not threatening your children. You're threatening my children and your children. Well, what, officer? Do you think I'm doing something wrong? I don't use your products. You've seen me on the videos of this now we've shot. I've done this many times. I don't use the drugs the government's been caught shipping in, the big banks have been caught laundering. Now, if you want to sit here and make me wait and get a drug dog and all that, whatever. I'm not the person pulling people over and trying to search their vehicles. But you want to do something to me? Go ahead. Go ahead. Hey, I bet that's a truck full of illegal aliens driving by right there. Oh, but you're not supposed to arrest them. And the cop's like, really, actually, you're right. Okay, for 30 minutes or so, Greg Palast is going to be our guest, about 40 after. Then I'll take your calls into the next hour on the Iran attack news, on the economy, on the Penn State situation. How could this be covered up that long? It just shows how big institutions are places where corruption can really thrive. And small towns, big cities. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We're going to go to Greg Palast, talk about his new book, Vulture's Picnic, and get his view on the world here in a moment. But first, we're offering a deal right now that runs up until Christmas that we've never offered anything this good before. And you can check any specials we've done, and we've had some great ones. 18 of my films on DVD and then a selection of Infowars.com and In the Fed bumper stickers, and the Citizens Rule Book for $99.95. It would normally be $369.95. $269 plus off all of my films that are on DVD for $99.95. Perfect way to get these and then give them as gifts to everybody you know. You can take care of 16 people at once because a couple of these have 2 films in each package, like Order of Death, Dark Secrets, or the Police State film. A lot of the films are 3 hours long, like Martial Law. It's really 3 films in one. Technically, though, we call it one film. In-game, 3 hours of information. I mean, it's unbelievable. You want a master's degree in the New World Order geopolitical system. This is it right here, and it's available until supplies last. They ordered a bunch of extra DVDs to do this, but it looks like they're going to run out well before Christmas. So if you want to take advantage of that, Infowars.com. And your purchase, the small profit we make, is very meager, supports everything we're doing here. I had to hire 2 more people because we did the bumper stickers at cost. You can look at what they were and what they are now, different bumper sticker packages to help put these up in legal, lawful areas to help get the word out. Because, you know, they're setting up martial law and total police state and about to start World War III. I don't suggest you climb up on the billboard here in Austin that shows Colin Powell and Rudolph Giuliani coming to town, a bunch of confirmed liars to push their New World Order on us. I don't think anybody should climb up on that billboard and spray paint war criminals on it. Again, I don't think you should. I'm serious. But you should show your friends and family these DVDs, and you should put these stickers on your car or wherever else is legal and lawful. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Infowars.com or 888-253-3139. And we haven't gone up yet. But I'm going to go up a little bit on the bumper stickers because we had to hire 2 more people just to get out those orders, where there's so many orders coming in that we're going to have to raise it a little bit because now we're losing money on these. We can't do that. We won't be here. But I want to thank everybody for your support with the Money Bomb. I want to thank everybody with your support, spreading the word about everything we do. We are becoming a dominant force in resistance to the globalists because of your help, and I want to salute all of you. Okay, until 45 after or so, then we'll go to your calls. Is Greg Palast. He really doesn't need an introduction for a lot of people. He's a real investigative journalist. I don't even necessarily agree with maybe 10, 15% of his political views, but I 100% believe in his analysis. He really is an old-fashioned investigative journalist for BBC, ABC. He's done other made films, best-selling author. His new book is Vulture's Picnic in Pursuit of Petroleum, Pigs, Power, Pirates, and High Finance Carnivores. And there, of course, is Greg on the back. He's about to join us via video Skype. But before he gets into his new book, and then I want to get his take on the world today and you know, snapshots, Iran, Israel, police state, USA, Obama. I want to bring him back to my book, Descent into Tyranny, which is just the last chapter is excerpts of my interview with him. 2002, he gets all these documents from the IMF and World Bank. He publishes some on BBC's top news show, their 60 Minutes equivalent, and they say, don't release the rest of them. So those never got released, but he released some, but he did see them all. Right around the time Joseph Stiglitz, I guess, left the World Bank, Nobel Prize winner for economics, also, I think, one for something else. He's a 2-time. The point is, he won't say he released them, but whatever. This documented how the IMF, World Bank take over countries, how they bankrupt them by design through fraud, and how they were going to do it in the West. And Palast, now, close to 10 years ago, really predicted what was coming. And so in light of that, open world government, corporate government being announced as a solution to the crisis they created. Greg, break down in hindsight 2002 in those documents versus now what happened, and then where you see us going and how it integrates into Vulture's Picnic.
Oh, boy. Well, actually, Chapter 12 is where it integrates in. I had to go back into the documents when Greece exploded. And sure enough, I found the documents on Greece, and in particular, a memo from Tim Geithner, who was our Secretary of Treasury. Tim Geithner to Larry Summers, who was our economic czar. And these are the kind of typhoid Marys of bank deregulation, which got us where we are. And it was their program to force all 155 nations that were members of the World Trade Organization into joining the deregulation mania. In other words, everyone into the leprosy colony. And it was a secret document. And here's what I find interesting. They're ready to pull the trigger. But not until they had called, Geithner told Summers he had to call 5 banks for approval to move ahead. J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank, and of course we ended up there with Goldman Sachs. And in my book, Vulture's Picnic, by the way, I have the personal phone numbers of all these CEOs. I think Penguin, my publisher, thought that I had faked it. The memo is right there, and those numbers are live. I'm sure they won't be by Monday when the book releases.
Incredible. What? No, go ahead.
No, so I had to authenticate some of these documents, of course, and many were authenticated by Joe Stiglitz, who'd been head of the World Bank, and now because he has a Nobel Prize, he feels free, not head of it, the chief economist, he feels free to authenticate. But the stuff from the World Trade Organization, because of my position with BBC, I was able to actually meet with the head of the WTO. And he says, the Frenchman, Pascal Lamy, who was head of the big French bank, Suez Lyonnais, and he says, we are not a cabal of bankers, some evil duck cabal. And I said, okay, well, you're not a cabal, but tell me about these documents here, and I pull them out. And it really made him smile. You see in the book, so basically he starts explaining it all away, these secret meetings with all the bankers to reestablish the New World Banking Order, where they have absolute stone control, and the punishment that would be meted out to any country, and they picked out, for example, Brazil, if they got in the way of the banks operating without control. In other words, it's a one-way system. It's not like there's no government involvement. They want the government to back it up. Basically, they want to have a casino where if they lose, you insure them. If they win, they say that they are job creators and they get to keep it. So you actually see these documents in Vulture's Picnic, and then after I take the documents to the head of the World Trade Organization, Lamy, get him to authenticate, and then I fly off to Quito to meet with the president of Ecuador and show him the Ecuador documents, which stunned him because he kept saying, he's an economist, the president of Ecuador. And he said, I think that there are secrets agreement between the big banks and the IMF and the World Bank to rip our economy apart. And, of course, he was derided as a conspiracy nut and all that. And so I decided, I called the president, and he brought me in. And I showed him the documents. I said, you may be a conspiracy nut, but, of course, you're 100% correct. Here's the evidence. So he took copies of all the material, and he made them public in Ecuador.
Amazing. Now, Greg Palast, now looking back, and then from that point looking forward, where are the banksters, the mega corporations today? What's happening in Libya, Iran? Geopolitically, from your research, why are they on the verge of attacking Iran? What's your view on that? Well,
I think that they're on the verge of constantly rattling their sabers to keep the war machine greased. Whether they actually attack or not we don't know. It's important to keep the pot boiling. It's important to keep people on the edge of their chair, that the terrorists are coming to get you. It's the Iranians. It's the Libyans. It's someone coming to get you. They have to keep this very, very lucrative war machine and terror machine going. For example, like right now, I was just meeting with Greek journalists. And they're saying, for example, in Greece, where the whole nation's on fire, and now it's happening in Italy and Spain. Greece was a crime scene, and this is very important. This is also in Vulture's Picnic. It's not about lazy Greeks who sit around, swilling ouzo and spitting out olive pits, and they, retire when they're 18 years old, and they're just a bunch of lazy bums who want to live on pensions like pashas. That's nonsense. Greece is a crime scene. There was a deal cut between Goldman Sachs and the prior Greek government, in which the Greek government handed Goldman Sachs euros, 2.3 billion euros. Goldman converted them to yen, Japanese yen, and then reconverted them back into euros at a massive loss to Goldman, which gave the Greek government a massive gain to cover up a deficit. Now, Goldman doesn't lose money, especially not deliberately. So they're not stupid. They're stupid like foxes. It was a phony transaction for which Goldman was paid over $250 billion. So for one little transaction, every senior partner of Goldman got a little extra million for their weekend. But the result was that of this flim-flam, when it was uncovered, is, of course, the economy simply imploded, and Greece has to pay something in the area of 9% above normal to borrow money on the euro. No one could survive that. And so then we're told it's the Greek people.
So it's the same model we've seen in Argentina and Nigeria and everywhere else. It's the same bankster model. So I want to hear you predict, as you did 9 years ago, where we're now going to go in the future. How does Greg Palast see all this shaking out in the economy? Stay with us. All right, your phone calls are coming up. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. You know, with all this stuff happening in the world, I'd like to hear what you think about Penn State, listeners. The students, most of them not caring and saying, keep the coach, who cares? How could they cover this up for 16, 17, 18 years? Greg, I want to get into world events with you and now where you see the world going, because you accurately, from your research, predicted it. But just briefly in 1 minute, I see this whole Penn State thing as another window into how institutions inherently, when they compromise at any level with integrity, pretty much degenerate into total corruption. I mean, is this not an example of how corruption in institutions can just grow?
Well, yeah, 'cause it's not about football. It's about money. This is a big money center in this area. So it's always a story of the money. It wasn't they were covering up because this was a big profit generator. And it was a big profit generator also used by local corporate bigwigs to impress their clients, et cetera. So basically it was protected by the pool of the big boys. It's always a money story. And as soon as money poisons any type of...
But if they'd have burned the pervert, instantly, it wouldn't have been any big deal. Why do crooks and the corrupt, why do the elite always think covering something up protects them?
Because they're used to it. They have impunity. They have complete impunity. Well, for example, in Vulture's Picnic, I have a story of Stephen A. Cohn, right? The guy's worth $7 billion. By the way, I shouldn't call it Vulture's Picnic. I should call it Job Creator Picnic, right? That's their new name for these billionaires. You know, what does this guy do for a living? Does he create a job? He knows he's made $7 billion by investing in stocks. What do you mean he invests? He's a speculator. He seems to know which way a stock will move before God does. You know what? I cut to the chase. I found the ex-trophy wife, right? Comes to me with the files, with the pillow talk. Yeah, you know what? He's really smart. He's smart enough to know how to buy the information so he knows which way a stock is going. And by
sure,
the way,
the entire stock market in your book shows this now. At the top is an inside game, just like a casino.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their thumb on the wheel. The cards are marked. And the thing is, there's no such thing. They say, well, what do we care? The answer is there's no such thing as a victimless billionaire. When a guy like Cohen makes $7 billion, it's because you lost it. He was selling stocks he knew would blow apart to pension funds, railroad pension funds, teacher funds. He was buying stocks off small investors who had no idea that some stock was about to be the target.
And instead of him going to jail, we bail out the derivatives and then go into debt for them. So what should happen to these people? Where is it going to end? I mean, just like Penn State, are their crimes invincible?
Well, it seems to be. I got to tell you, when I went through and got the Goldman scam with the Greek government in the old days. Remember, I used to be a government racketeering investigator. Well, we would read people their rights and handcuff them and walk them out of the buildings. And now these guys get bonuses. And they're arrogant. They're so arrogant about it. They know that no one is going to touch them. You know, Obama said when Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan was given a gigantic bonus off of our bailout money, Obama, and someone raised it, Obama said, well, why should we punish Jamie Dimon? Well, if you don't know that, Obama, why are you president? And if you don't, and the answer, and the other question is why is Jamie Dimon punishing us with our money?
Well, that's my next issue, Greg, is as you know, elaborate on this. Goldman Sachs and others have gotten their people in every top regulatory position. So where you were, and putting people in jail years ago, should have mentioned that, now they've put their own alumni.
Yeah, I mean, in Greece, when you're talking about this flim-flam, and remember that American investors were scammed here for billions, okay, for billions. Instead of going to jail, Goldman Sachs put their own man in now as the new head of the Greek economy. So you commit the crime, and basically these are the guys who benefit from the fire sale, and they've set the fire. And they are now buying up all these assets all over Greece and Spain and Italy, as these governments have been told the only thing you can do is sell off everything you own. And they're picking it up for peanuts. They're devaluing these people's currency so they cannot buy their own.
No. Max Kaiser was in Greece, went into another hotel, and there was Forbes and Steve Forbes, and he bragged, hey, this is a great deal. He knew Max from when he was a stockbroker. He said, this is a great deal. We're going to butcher this country and take the whole thing over for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, they're tearing it apart like they're ripping off turkey legs and chewing into them. I mean, it is the best deal. I mean, basically, you have entire countries now for sale.
All right, stay there. I want to hear then where you see this going. Stay there. Long segment coming up, then your phone calls, 800-259-9231. Greg Palast, Vulture's Picnic. Powerful book. I just got it. I can't wait to read it. It isn't even out yet. It comes out next week. All right, your phone calls are coming up. Greg's leaving us here in about 10 minutes, but I want to have him back up for a full hour once the book is actually out. And once I've had a chance to read it again, it just came in 2 days ago, and I've already scanned over. It looks like one of his best. Don't forget, tonight I'm going to have a special expose going back over the admitted pedophile scandals in Republican administrations mainly, and at the Bohemian Grove where the Republicans are at. You know, I'm not a fan of the Democrats either. Bill Clinton, raping women, settling rape cases and the rest of it. And Barney Frank, certainly underage call boys, Democrat. But with Republicans, Greg, let me bring that point up before we look forward where this whole global system's going as you stare into your tea leaves or crystal ball there from your research. As an investigative journalist, former federal fraud investigator, you name it. What do you make of the reason that, or you might disagree, that there is such a history of pedophilia and also closeted gay sex by so many Christian conservative leaders and mainline Republicans? What's happening there?
You know what? I'm an investigator, and I always follow the money. I know it may seem odd when you're talking about, personal perversions, but the thing is that it's amazing how much those with power and money believe that they are immune from the rest of the rules, moral and legal, that bind the rest of us. There's an actual sense when people get into the stratosphere of finance, as we see, or those who hang out with them, like the politicians who are their toy boys, that they actually feel immune. And when you meet these people, and by the way, I went to the University of Chicago with a lot of these sharks. I was actually a student of Milton Friedman, so I know these guys. And they actually feel that they're kind of the Ubermensch. They are supermen above the laws that apply to you and I. So if they have urges or desires, that's they're different than you and me.
But I've never had those. Here's the deal. I've never had those urges. So I don't understand why it pops up so much with this group. It's just something's wrong with these people is what I'm saying. It's.
Well, it's very interesting because I go back to Chinatown, where, of course, the evil head of the power and water company, and believe me, I know some of these guys. He in the end of the film, he has raped his own daughter, and his line is, "I did it because I can." And it's almost a kind of perverse joy that they are different than the rest of us. Now, it's true. I must admit, it's hard for me to understand because, I'm not claiming any special high moral ground, but I just don't have such strange urges. But I'll tell you this, it's almost like they live in this perverted world. If you just shafted the entire Greek nation, then picking up a 7-year-old boy may just seem like an appetizer to you. I think it
No,
goes
I
with
think that's it. I think, Greg, I think you've hit on something here. I think they are morally, spiritually bankrupt, and it's that they've done so much evil, they're cursed with all of this stuff that they're into. I think you just hit it. And you look at sociopaths, psychopaths, sadist, other groups, that's the only time they feel alive is when they're doing something really twisted. I think, well, obviously you're a criminologist. You've hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I think that this whole sense of impunity and almost a desire to prove that you can get away with something, and almost a childish, when you meet these people, it's almost a sick, childish desire to kind of push it into your face, which is what's happening now. When you read these documents, it's almost like they're daring you. Like I say in chapter 12 of Vulture's Picnic, and then also like I'm dealing right now with investigating one of the biggest donors to the Republican Party, who's spending his time, basically stealing all the money for AIDS medicine in Africa. Now, when you pull a stunt like that, what is your moral, is there any moral limit? Is there anything you won't do? I just was in Congo last week where there's a cholera epidemic, and the guy's taking their money away for the clean water that they need to end the epidemic. Once you get that, I mean, heck, a little. So
rape,
where
are they going?
A little sodomy.
Yeah. So where are they going then?
Well, it's hard to say because, like, you take a guy like Paul the Vulture Singer and one of the characters of Vulture's Picnic, and I didn't call him vultures. The bankers who work with him and who profit from him call him the Vulture. Maybe his mother does too. It's like there is no end. That is, he's worth about $4 billion. Why is he continuing this? What does he need that extra money for? Oh, take Charles Koch. I did an investigation of him years ago, and from the Koch brothers, he was skimming oil off the Osage Indian Reservation. You'll really like this one, Alec. This is right. It's in Vulture's Picnic. We have a tape recording of him that I got from an FBI agent. And one of his chiefs is asking why he's stealing money from the Osage Indian Reservation. It's about $100 per native in the and the Indian-owned wells. He's already a billionaire. Why is he taking $100 from a poor native? And the answer, Koch says himself, I want what's coming to me, and that's all of it. In other words, there's no moral limit. It's almost like he's got the billions. He's going to steal another $100 from some poor Indian. And then you ask, well, so some weird perversion that crosses his mind, to him it's just ordering another appetizer off the menu.
Yeah, it's amazing. And these globalists have sold us, or attempting to sell us, their worldview that torture is good, secret arrest. But, looking at George Soros, I've seen the 60 Minutes piece where I always heard about it, but I actually saw it last year. We played it here from 10 years ago. And he says, they say, so you helped round up your own people and give them to the Nazis and take their property. He goes, yeah. And he goes, and I learned a lot from that. If I wouldn't have, somebody else would. I'm proud that I'm a survivor. And it just shows some kind of psychopathic disconnect, because you tend to usually go after the right-wingers. But what do you think of Obama being financed by the very same people and the whole political field right now? I mean, what do you think about the Democrats?
Well, I have to tell you that if you read Vulture's Picnic, you won't think I go after these so-called right-wingers anymore, that is Republicans, because I actually trace the big evil to the Clinton administration, Robert Rubin, and the disease of basically it was a criminal act, deregulation. Understand what Robert Rubin did. He's Secretary of the Treasury. Against every intelligence person's warning, he demands that the casinos, the investment banks, be allowed to merge and mate with the commercial banks, which you and I insure, where we put our savings. He goes off within 5 months. He's co-chairman of one of these new combined monsters of Citibank. He is given a $110 million fee. Now, I'm sorry, when you change the law and basically bring down the world economy and you get a $110 million fee, that makes you a monster. Now, a registered Democrat monster, but a monster nonetheless.
Sure, exactly. And the same group financed Bush, and the same group is financing Obama. So that's the issue. For those that don't know, explain to them about the derivatives. You get rid of Glass-Steagall. He changes the regulations. Now the investment banks that create all this toxic, made-up garbage, they can now get it basically government-backed, like the citizens' money. And then the contagion spreads through anything. Now, they hold us hostage saying, give us unlimited trillions and make us the bosses of the globe even more, or we'll bring down the world economy, and now we're held hostage. And I think that's why they're so arrogant.
Yeah, and the thing is that they have brought down. We've paid them about $4 trillion in subsidies, $4 trillion. And they still brought down the world economy. It's not like we got anything back for it. I mean, I'd almost say, okay, you know, when they say, well, you too big to fail, you realistically have to bail out the banks. Well, how about bailing us out? And, you know, what did we get in return? And they are, you know, like Goldman, for example. And by the way, most of Goldman money went to Democrats, not to Republicans. Obama got about 4-to-1 finance money over McCain. So, I mean, what's happened now is that they're used to, you know, the Democrats used to try to pretend to be the party of the people. The pretense is gone. Everyone's in the pool, and now they're all fighting for that finance and shark and vulture money. And that's the problem, that there is no alternative. You either have, you know, the party owned by the bankers or the party rented by the bankers, and that's kind of your choice.
So do we just stay on this business? Do we stay on this express elevator to Hades with these people, or is there a way to get out of it? I mean, how do you in your gut see it going?
I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, because when you see basically they could burn down Greece, and remember, they were going to have a vote by the Greek people, which is the cradle of democracy. Imagine allowing a democratic vote on whether the bankers should be bailed out. Remember, all this money goes to the bankers, not one penny to Greece. 180 billion euros, that's $500 billion. $500 billion. All goes to the bankers. The Greek people are have to pay it off by selling everything they have. If they can do that there, they can do it in Los Angeles. They did it in Ecuador. They did it in Argentina. But those people rose up. They tried it in Brazil. They couldn't get away with it very long. But people had to go through a very bad time. You had doctors eating out of garbage cans looking for food. This is where we'll have to head first, and then we will react as they did in South America and say enough of this stuff. But I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, because there's a consensus among all the political powers that this is the only way it could be. They are too big to fail and too big to jail.
And they're a bunch of crooks. They're confident. The world is their oyster. They can set up a domestic police state to suppress any political justice being brought at them. And so we basically have a Hitlerian fascist group of thugs squatting on us, who are on complete power trips. The sky's the limit. Greg, in closing, folks can get the book. They can pre-order it now on Amazon.com, and we'll have you back up in the near future. If you ever come through Austin, we'd love to have you send a car to get you and have you in studio. But in closing, it's now coming out, the DA, NBC's reporting, who never charged the reported child rapist, has been missing since 2005. It's now turning out other people are missing who were involved. They're now saying donors, the word is, and they're investigating it. We're in there buggering the children, and that fits in with the Texas Youth Commission and this pervert pattern that we've seen, where he was doing it in the showers. I guess because that makes it more fun, as you were saying, these in criminology that they like to flaunt it. And now it turns out there were secret deals to cover it up in the school. That's now confirmed. That's coming out of NBC and ABC. As a former federal investigator, longtime award-winning investigative journalist, your gut, your cop knows or investigator knows. What do you just, as a gestalt, what does your nose pick up out of this Penn State thing? Because mine tells me, and I said this on Monday, this goes a lot deeper.
Well, number one, if you think it's one place, this is some special perverted hole, I'm afraid that now the elite has decided that, there's nothing left to buy except impunity. And not only for their worst urges, but almost like they urge each other on to be more perverse than the next. It's almost like, you know, you can only have so many trophy wives. So now you have you have your 7-year-old prostitutes. I mean, I think that, you know, it's just the new trophy that they have. It's, you know, the new because you can only have so many Gulf Streams. You have to understand how much money is flowing around. We never saw this. We haven't seen this since the 1890s. And so there's absolutely no limit. And believe me, it's not one college, you know, and you know that, Alex. It's always there's one, and they're stomping on it. That's why they're throwing people out. He's resigning. They want it to die. They want it to be one isolated event. It's not.
What percentage, from your research, of people are depraved criminals?
Oh, I haven't.
Cut them down. You know, the fact that I'm still alive, the fact that I'm on so many AM and FM stations, well, my goodness, the fact that this show is so popular, the fact that there are so many good people that post our stories and have come to our aid shows that there is still a lot of good people in this world. In fact, we are the majority. Doesn't mean we're perfect, but our hearts are right. We love God. Like King David did a lot of bad things. He wasn't perfect. But he repented, and he was a good man at heart, and God said, you're a man after my own heart. And we need to not be naive and recognize, as a society, just how corrupt things have gotten. If you've studied history, folks, then you see the signpost. And I've been a novice historian, and let me tell you, when you know history and you see what's happening, it's like, danger, I just got chills, literally. Danger, Will Robinson. Mike Adams sent me a text the other day and said, you know, I feel a disturbance in the force. He said, I've never felt this much anxiety about what's going on. Times in the past when I had anything near this bad stuff happened. Well, they're trying to start World War III, potentially. I mean, it's crazy. We've allowed criminals to get into positions of power everywhere and recruit more crooks. They want the power. Good people don't want it. That's the problem. We have to be the light and salt in the world. And we have to not be naive about what's happening. Let's go to Carl in Oregon. Thanks for holding. Carl, you're on the air.
My brother, Alex.
Hey.
Remember me? I was Carl from California.
I think I recognize your voice. Welcome.
Hey, brother. Settled here for about a month now. I have to report that the resources are much better here in this state, although it's not perfect. The difference between California and Oregon is like the difference between night and day. We had, of course, you know, the Occupy protests going on. I live in the city of Portland, so I'm close to the action near Ground Zero. We had Mitt Romney come here, and we protested against him. That war criminal Condoleezza Rice came here. We protested against her. And yeah, Michael Moore came. Well, we just sat back when he came. We didn't have much to say about that. We didn't know. That was kind of humorous. But just want to let you know that still plugged in. Took a few days to get through. I had an idea I wanted to share with you. I've seen this movie called Zeitgeist.
Yes.
And I watched the most fascinating part of the program was the addendum, talking about a resource-based economy instead of a monetary system. What do you think about that? And what's our chances that we can turn this around if we switch to a
Well, I'm not against getting off the fiat money system, but resource as long as it's based around private property. And the Zeitgeist type idea, you know, isn't really along those lines. I mean, I think the guy's an excellent filmmaker. He used a lot of my material, obviously, in his first big release that was the big hit. And then I got criticized for his political ideas because my video was in it. He didn't ask me. He just used it. Later, when he commercially released it, I gave him permission because I believe in people having a First Amendment. And I told him, hell, you ought to just use it fair use, pal. You know, this is political, what I'm talking about. You can critique what I'm saying. But I'm for local control, and I'm a constitutionalist. That's the system under our republic that worked the best. I'm pretty wary of what the Zeitgeist promotes. I mean, I think it's got some good ideas and a lot of good people that follow it. Stay with us. Third hour, straight ahead. We are back live, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, the 10th day of November, 2011. Eddie Craig, radio talk show host, former sheriff's deputy, who's winning a lot of cases exposing the constitutional trampling that's going on by the police, traffic court, you name it. This is a great way to fight back against the system by learning your rights that scare the system so much. And I'll have him back soon for a whole hour. He'll be on the nightly news tonight, but he's going to be coming up in 20 minutes. And I've got a lot of other news I'm also going to be mentioning before we get there. Right now, let's go back to your calls. Matt in California, and of course, earlier the caller brought up Zeitgeist. That's fine. Does anybody concerned about this Penn State thing that for 18 years a major university could cover up basically a rape room with little kids that were being brought in as part of being disadvantaged? I mean, does that concern anybody? I'm sure Matt might be calling in about something else, but Matt, why are you contacting us today?
Well, I was actually going to contact you about the Penn State case. It seems that everyone who has a power elite or a feel of their elitism has some way to kind of dissonate that cause amongst everything. So they try to dehumanize everyone. And we've seen it slowly happen, but now I just think it's, we're trying in every front to remove the innocence that we can. So now we're starting with the children.
That's right. And that's why they're trying to teach 5-year-olds sex, both hetero and homosexual, is to destroy their innocence, and it's done in the name of diversity. It's sick and wicked, and it's done by a pervert government.
Absolutely. It's aggressive dominance. You use it to destroy the hopes of the economic factor with people losing all of their money, and now we have systems in place to destroy the innocence of children so that they don't even know how to fight back later on. I mean, there have been...
And they give them Gardasil shots that hurt them, confirmed, put them on drugs, put fluoride in the water. This is just a wicked society.
Yes, and it kind of repeats other pieces of history. I mean, this has been done for thousands and thousands of years, only now it seems that our elite have taken on the responsibility of doing it to us. And it's a destructive method, of course. We need to stop this at hand because we need children to be able to be the future, to be able to fight back against the next problem. Or, in fact, if we can create a solution to this problem, have a future for our children to where they don't feel victimized so much that they can actually work towards a better society.
That's right. And then they take the crimes they've committed and then advertise it everywhere and create government programs to fight what they've created. And then they advertise the evil and put it in people's minds. There's a verse in the Bible about, they ran around continually inventing new forms of wickedness. I forget the exact quote. I've actually got my wallet around here somewhere that has got another Bible verse in it I wanted to read on air. But go ahead and take us out to break. You've got the floor.
Hey, I just think that you're doing a great thing. You're a wonderful person, but we need to always pay attention. We need to be focused on changing the world. And by allowing this to happen and then considering it, it's just a one-time consideration and these kids are confused. It's not. You know as well as I do. It's happening more than we would like. And for us to find a solution, we need to be able to stop the elite in every behavior that they have.
Well, look, they need to take the guy when he's convicted, because there's all these witnesses to it, and he needs to be hung. And they need to take everyone who covered it up and execute him. I mean, and that'll stop it real fast. I mean, when you're confirmed, you did this, and you covered it up, that's Mussolini level. And what ended up happening to Mussolini? I mean, that'll put the fear of God into these people. I mean, that's the problem. They always want to kill us. It's time through the system they be brought to justice. It's time these people start being executed. And until that starts happening, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. They need to die. But first, they need to be adjudicated by a jury of their peers. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Happy Valley. Penn State, one of the iconic universities, the good guys, old-fashioned. Meanwhile, for 18 years, they've known of the ongoing reports of children being raped inside the field house showers and other areas, and now reports are coming out. It's on the Drudge Report. It's on Infowars.com. We're going to have a special report tonight with more of the background of this around the country, that reportedly they may have been bringing donors in. That's what I said on Monday. I said, my gut from seeing these rings in the past, the Republican National Committee, the Franklin cover-up, the Texas Youth Commission, this guy wasn't doing this in plain view because He was crazy. He was doing it because he was evil, and he knew that he had the full backing of the sickos above him. I'd give it about a 99% chance there's a bunch of pervs above him, a bunch of walking maggots. And, of course, the DA went bye-bye, hadn't ever been found, probably dead, NBC reports. In 2005, decided not to go with it. 2002 didn't investigate it, but then disappeared, or maybe got a payoff. Maybe just fell off a turnip truck somewhere and is sitting on the side of the road for 11 years, or, 6, 7 years. I want to continue and go back to your phone calls. This is very painful to see this, but we just get numb to it, like with the Catholic Church stuff and the things that have gone on in the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, great organization. But if I was to let my son in the Boy Scouts, I've been so busy I haven't even had him in it, I'd have to go to every event. I'd have to be right there next to him in the tent. And as screwed up as this society is, because there's so many of these perverts, I'd have to stay with my son in our own tent. I would not stay in a tent with other kids. And this really destroys the family. It destroys the image of fatherhood and men as leaders. This is how the devil destroys society. It's how these sickos do this. Because now people are afraid at public events to even, when children talk to them, to even say hi to them. Every man is a suspect because we've allowed these wicked devils to operate. It's incredible. Frank in North Carolina, and then Clayton and others. You're on the air, Frank. Welcome.
Yeah, in a time of universal deceit, speaking truth had become a revolutionary act. Infowars.com. Infowars.com. That'll be going out over the local 50,000-watt neocon station tomorrow morning. And that's what I've been doing for months and months, trying to get the word out. I've been getting the word out week after week after week. I'm about the only one that calls in, so I was calling basically just to put a request out. Anybody in my area, there's really only one neocon station here. It's really the only talk radio station. It's 50,000 watts. It covers a wide area. North Carolina even goes down into South Carolina. During the evening, it's actually from Maine to Cuba. So it's a very...
oh, yeah, there are AM stations that on average over the day, some of those 50,000 watters might have 1 million listeners, and they can't even get calls because the mainline jellyfish head won't actually dial a phone. We're in that big of a coma. And patriots can call in, don't lie to the screener, tell them you want to talk about the issue they want to cover, but then add your addendum to it of websites, news, information. Tell them, you ought to have Alex Jones of Infowars.com on. Not that I even have time to go on those shows. I turn down interviews every day. I'm so busy. But that's a way to get the website out. Plug Ron Paul, whatever. Bring up the New World Order. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your point, Frank.
Yeah, I've got the Gadsden flag. You know, I've got the Ron Paul Infowars.com on the back of my Jeep. Nobody, no thumbs up, nothing around here. Everybody, bunch of zombies, sports obsessed. They don't care about anything. Well, there is one guy. He probably listens to your show on a regular basis because he's got 2 Infowars.com bumper stickers on the back of his car and a Ron Paul sticker. That's the only guy I've ever met in this whole freaking city. This is like the second largest banking city in America. Charlotte, North Carolina, the radio station is W as in Waco, B as in Bohemian, T as in Texas, WBT 1110 AM. Call in because you get 7 seconds. That's why I call in, sneak in whenever I can, and I have asked them to have you on and whatnot. Of course, they pretend like they've never heard of you, and they all know who you are. But on Friday, the last 30 seconds of the show that comes on, that's ending right before Rush Limbaugh comes in, and a lot of times I'll tell people, turn off Rush Limbaugh, put on Infowars.com for the truth, stuff like that. And you can actually get it. They give you 7 seconds. You call in. If you can get through, it's not that hard to get through most of the time. And a lot of times it works out perfect because I'm the last caller right before Rush Limbaugh comes on. And I do a little 7-second ad for you.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend, if our 3 million listeners that tune in every day, we reach about 15 million every week one way or another, if they would all do things like that, it'd bring the globalists to their knees. If people would start their own website and plug that, and people would go and broker or get a few sponsors, get their own time on a little station, doesn't matter, or go to an access show or air my films, whatever. The people are ready to be awakened, and I found that either areas are totally unawake and under a trance, or they're really waking up. But Again, I played football. I like sports. I like baseball. I like it all. I like track. I like field. I like everything. But it's become a sick thing where that's all we look up to. That's all we've got as a culture. Not a Bill of Rights, not a Constitution, not a private property. And the system uses that to sell all their messages interwoven with the sports, and it's become a gladiatorial bread and circus. It's become very, very sick. And I just see men like zombies who aren't even men, and all they do is kind of toady around about their sports heroes. And then now they don't know what to do. They go, our hero covered up this. Well, that's okay then. You know, oh, big deal. Again, I see so much sickness around sports now. Now, I'm not talking about kids in soccer or football. I'm all about people in sports. But just these organized, well, I mean, take the universities now. They admit they're a giant bubble. Most people will never be able to get a job good enough to pay off their degree. I'm all for education. But it's become a fraud to many, respects and levels. And now they want us to bail it all out. Those of us that, got out of college or didn't finish college because we were already doing well in life or chose another career path. And all these big universities have now is the facade of the sports team. It's not about the academia. It's not about the test scores. It's not about the inventions. It's not about that. Take UT. They've got close to $100 billion in their permanent fund and some other slush funds. And they're always raising fees, raising all this stuff. They get all this tax money, all this other revenue from their oil that they own, biggest landowner in Texas. And the more corrupt they get, the bigger the football becomes. Because that's the facade. You go there to buy a T-shirt, wear it, and feel like you're part of a tribe. And you're getting a degree that's being devalued just like the U.S. dollar. That's why I'm so angry at sports. Because the more effeminate and toady, but fake tough, macho you are, the more you're into sports. And I look at these men. These are not men. It just totally freaks me out. We don't have time to sit there and watch the football game. You don't have time to know your Bill of Rights. You don't have time to be informed. You don't have time to know why you're losing your jobs. But you got time to sit there and suck your thumb and watch a bunch of arrogant professional football players or whatever run around the field. I'm sorry, it's sick. I appreciate your call. And look, when football, baseball is a pastime or whatever, as some side thing when, your work's done and America wasn't in this position, sure. But now you go to the football game, they grope you, all of this, they bombard you with all these messages. I mean, folks, stop being used. Stop being sucked into this thing. America is rotten, okay? America needs you to repent. It's because I love this country. I'm telling you, we've got cancer. It's like if you have the flu and you've got to vomit out the viruses. The vomiting is your body getting the poison out. The getting a fever. They always say give babies fever when give babies Tylenol when they have a fever, even if it's 100. The fever is what kills the infection. We need to have a fever. We need to throw up. That's repenting. We need to get the poison out. But to get the poison out, we've got to admit what the poison is. And I'm not perfect, okay? I'm worldly. I mean, most people would think I am pretty moral. I mean, I like to drink sometimes. I shouldn't. I'm very faithful to my wife and really love her, and she's beautiful, but I still catch myself lusting. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm a man, and I repent for that because I need to be strong and focused to defend my family, and I need to be dedicated, my energy 100% towards doing goodness because it's not a joke. You're in a struggle with evil, and if you don't stay on top of evil, it's going to overtake you, okay? Societally, economically, spiritually. It is an ongoing struggle. Clayton in Ohio, you're on the air.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up some issues. The first thing I wanted to bring up was a question. And the first question I have is this. What do you think will be the 21st century version of the Stamp Act?
Oh, it was going to be his Christmas tree stamp act yesterday, but they'd killed that. It's probably going to be taking people's houses that the government and the banks don't own. It could be the TSA. In fact, now that I think TSA is probably going to be the 21st century Stamp Act, especially when they start highway checkpoints and the first person blows up and, when they grope their kid and shoots a bunch of people and then they call them terrorists and then other people just say, I'm fed up and start doing it. It's going to turn into a civil war like 1776 and then it's on. The Stamp Act will be them coming for the guns. I can't tell you how many veterans and people aren't afraid to die, don't even like life too much anymore, and are looking for it. And that, the government, in a way, is right. That they know the tyranny they're going to bring in is going to cause a lot of patriots to start fighting them, and they're going to be called terrorists. So it's true. The number one threat to the New World Order is the veterans. Not to the U.S. government, but to the criminals that took it over. So in their internal manuals, when they're trying to take on veterans, they better. Because let me tell you something. These people are ready. They're not scared. They're just holding back. They're hoping things can be turned around. And I would not want to be a New World Order minion. We're going to get to calls a little bit with Eddie Craig. You want to hold till later, or are you done, sir?
No, I want to hold because there's more I want to bring up.
Okay, but I got to get Eddie Craig in. Then when I come back to calls, I'll go to you. We only got like 3 segments with Eddie, and then he'll be back tonight. But stay with us. It's all coming up. All right, Eddie Craig is our guest for the rest of the hour. And we will also go to some of your calls towards the end, so we at least get to the folks that are holding, maybe do a little bit of overdrive. It'll be back with us tonight on the Nightly News. But I know a little bit about the law. I've studied it some, more than most, but most people have no knowledge. So they're lambs to the slaughter. But listening to his radio show that's on here locally and seeing the success he's had in court and the news articles that have been written about it across the state, I wanted to get him in studio as a former sheriff's deputy to basically break down what he learned and just how much the Constitution's being trampled. But I was going to ask you, what would you do if you were Jesse Ventura? They create a law saying you don't get a jury trial. It goes right to appellate court. They don't really tell him that. They let it sit there until the appeal time is over, they're claiming. And I said, what would you do? And you said a writ of mandamus, and that's what I would probably, and I've told Ventura that, and he's like, well, I'll talk to my lawyer. But explain to people what a writ of mandamus is, and just in that case point example, what you would do about that.
Well, a writ of mandamus basically is a writ to a higher court requesting that it enforce its power to overrule a lower court determination regarding its decision. Basically, there are rules and procedures the courts have to comply with, and when they don't, then you appeal to a higher court to direct the lower court to follow the rules. And this is a good indication in this case where the rules are definitely not being followed. The state constitution in any state, according to its own language, is the highest law of authority in that state. So the legislature can't just arbitrarily enact a statute, nor can the court arbitrarily interpret a statute that would violate the Constitution of the state.
And you've been engaging in a lot of pro se research for a long time. I want to, when we come back in the next long segment, break down who you are and how you woke up. But just from a layman's position, the FBI can't stick their hands down your pants in a warrantless situation. And there's special procedures even then if you're in custody. Or you as a sheriff's deputy couldn't. But now they have federal goons out of their jurisdiction, not even sworn, taking over. And now they're going to be and are on the highways. How and why is that unconstitutional, both federal and state, from your research?
Well, just straight up, on the federal Constitution side, since it governs the actions of the TSA, they are acting as a federal agency, then the specific limitations of the Constitution there would apply in the Bill of Rights. No illegal search and seizures, so on and so forth. Your 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights are not up for grabs just because Congress wants to pass an unsubstantiated bill creating a particular agency or allowing some already authorized agency to create a separate department and then create its own rules for it. Its rules and regulations still must abide by the laws and by the Constitution. When it fails to do that, then it needs to be challenged. And the only way we can do that right now is to take these people to court, unfortunately.
And I was told by a TSA agent in Las Vegas that he had an administrative right to stick his hand down my pants.
Nope, not true. Not true. They only get away with what they're doing for 2 reasons. We acquiesce, and they're holding the guns. That's really the only reason.
So we've entered a realm of tyranny. I mean, this is on its face. And of course, you could go over, how many rulings are there where Marbury versus Madison, they go on and on. Just because government passes some law, if it's not in the Bill of Rights Constitution, I mean, if it's clearly unconstitutional, then it's still illegal. They could pass a law saying black people aren't human again. Does that mean blacks have to follow that law?
No, it doesn't. And there are many, many rulings through the history of the United States from the higher courts stating that the people do not have to accept arbitrary rule or actions by their government servants. They don't. And right now, what we have in the biggest part of this problem is that the servant now believes themselves to be the master. And we're letting them keep that train of thought alive and well by not returning to our true role and getting rid of these people that would institute this.
Tell us about your time as a sheriff's deputy and how you woke up.
Well, for the most part, the individual I was working for, who was sheriff in Nacogdoches at the time, had a very sullied reputation for the way he ran things and the way he did things. My town happens to sit on one of the largest drug highways through the state, Highway 59 and 259, where they center together there in Nacogdoches. And there was constantly drug busts there and so on and so forth. But for some reason, the amount of busts we had never seemed to amount equal to what we contained in the evidence rooms and things of that nature. So it was obvious that a lot of what was being seized was not being kept for the purpose of evidence, nor was it actually being destroyed. So where was it going? You could see things like that. You could see...
Stay there. Let's come back in the long segment, break down your awakening process, similar to mine. I saw the police dealing drugs, sheriff's deputies and police where I grew up, and I'm like, you guys are drug dealers? And then I'd see them a week later at the school lecturing us about don't use drugs. They were really there advertising, here's the product. Eddie Craig's our guest, a really great constitutional expert, and he's winning in court. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back live with Eddie Craig, and you were getting to the point of you started to notice what you believe was corruption in the sheriff's department with missing drugs. Please continue, and then we'll get into somebody who studied the law, won in court, how we see our Bill of Rights, our Constitution being destroyed, what you would do, and then they now say it's going into all 50 states. You pull up, Army could be there, TSA is always in command, Viper teams, and they're directing families out, jerking them out of cars, searching them, barking orders, basically like people showing up at a Supermax prison. I mean, they want to let you know you're lower than dirt, and the feds are here and they're taking over under civil emergency. This is really martial law is how they're doing it, but continue with your awakening and then just run the gamut of things people need to be made aware of.
Well, as far as the rest of my awakening was concerned, when I've watched all these officers through my career there and everything, writing all these traffic citations, and I couldn't figure out exactly what the offense was other than just what they call a mala prohibitum action, where they just want to simply say that it's illegal because we said it is, not because anybody got hurt or it caused any damage. It's just illegal because we declared it to be illegal. It's very much like the war on drugs. It's just one of the things they want to do to get further control of us. Right now, in these state programs like the driver's license and registration, so on and so forth, it's all about the control of your ability to move. They want to know where you are, when you are. Everything about you is monitored because of these licenses and registrations. The smart tags they use on the toll roads, for instance, those are going to be coming into the license plates. Those are be coming into the inspection.
Oh, they admit they're already tracking everybody in live time. You've got to get all permission to get a hunting license. They run your background. Oh, hadn't paid child support, didn't pay your taxes. And soon they admit, under Homeland Security, you hadn't paid your taxes, which is the Federal Reserve, you won't be able to have a job.
Right, and that's the entire reason why the state started implementing the use of the Social Security number in any kind of licensing, is they used it under the guise of protecting people from unpaid child support. You can't exercise this privilege unless you're current with your child support. Again, just another way of getting into the family.
They're turning the whole country into a giant prison, and to be able to work, it's like you're a trustee allowed out at Huntsville to go sweep the side of the street.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you got all these licenses and fees and face scanning and light pole microphones. That's the equivalent of the chains on his legs.
Exactly. And what we, the people, have failed to understand is that when we created the government, we created them for one specific purpose, to protect our individual rights and our individual property from incursion by outside forces.
Now that's flipped backwards.
Exactly. Now they are the outside force that's seeking to take control of everything that we have.
So roll through examples. Traffic stops, you name it. Break it down.
Okay, for instance, they pull you over, they issue a citation. What most people don't understand about the traffic laws is the commercial nature of those laws. The licensing, the registration, the insurance, all of those things only apply to people that are engaging in transportation. That's the whole gist right there. And transportation, by definition, is the movement of goods or services by carrier, whether that carrier is a public carrier or a private contract carrier. All of those are entities that make their living using the roads as a place of business and commerce. You and I don't do that. We've been duped into believing we have to have.
And by the way, I've told police officers this, and they laugh at me, even though it's one of the most adjudicated issues since the 20s. I know you could rattle off the cases all day. They're now saying our guns are a privilege. Driving's not a privilege, or traveling's not a privilege. Owning a gun's not a privilege, but they're telling us it is.
That's true. And again, to me, the adjudication of the issues is not so much the right to travel as it is the deprivation of the right of liberty and locomotion, which is what the higher courts, including the Supreme Court, have adjudicated for decades about the people's individual right of liberty. Locomotion is a necessary attachment to the right of liberty. And they've ruled time and time again that the people we own the roads, not the state. The state is the caretaker we appointed to manage and maintain those roads.
And it's an archetypal image of authoritarian systems, people on reservations, plantations, Roman slave grids, to have checkpoints and the roads turning into militarized systems. That is what it is to live in an occupied country. When you have that, we've shown you military training films where they admit secretly, this is martial law. This is what it's like to live in a third world country.
That's true. And the biggest way they're getting away with the things like the roadblocks and the things like you're talking about is right now everyone is under the impression this applies to me. And because they're acquiescing to that, they're making themselves subject to it. Pretty much everything in the transportation code is done by agreement. I agree to be bound by these rules as long as I'm acting in this privileged state.
And as it's done millions of times, it creates a common law precedent. It's still fraudulent, but from what I've researched in law, possessions 9/10, they are by just way of what's the term that they use in some of the more ancient common law, that it's a custom. Mm-hmm. And so they're getting the cops accustomed, they're getting you accustomed.
Right. They basically have acclimated us to be apathetic in the exercise of our rights. Your rights are what the state dictates your rights are. That's what our kids are being trained in school to accept. That's what the adults are being trained to accept. For those that are actually in law enforcement, believe it or not, there are many of them that don't understand the nuances of what's going on, but they know they don't like it.
Well, let's talk about that, but take vaccines. They've known there's no law, you have to take vaccines. They lie on the news in concert, across the country, the same talking point, say it's the law, you'll be arrested. But really, the school triggers truancy, kicks you out, and then uses the truancy to try to arrest you. When they were lying and kicking you out for something that wasn't a law, they're now engaged in racketeering and fraud.
That's true. That's true. They're actually misrepresenting the law, and believe it or not, Texas has a law against that. If you misrepresent the existence of a law for the purpose of creating or inducing an action by another, that's illegal in this state. It's completely illegal. And no one knows that, and no one will take that penal statute and go after the public servant that's using it illegally in that manner. For instance, one of the biggest things the police use here in Texas to illegally arrest people is either public intoxication statute or failure to identify. Now, 38.02 Penal Code here in Texas on the failure to identify is very, very specific. In order to be charged with failure to identify, the individual must have already been lawfully arrested for some other crime. And emphasis on lawfully arrested. Here, they try to take you to jail. If you won't produce a driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance during a traffic stop, they say that you failed to identify. But the statute does not require a physical presentation of a physical identity card of any kind. It simply requires you provide 3 pieces of information: name, address, and date of birth, and nothing more. Now, given that, when you are being told you have to provide a physical ID.
By the way, that's international common law. Name, rank, and serial number.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Military status of everything. But again, if I have not been lawfully arrested for something, I'm not even and cannot be required to provide you even with that information. So if you're attempting to take a transportation statute and use it against me as a private citizen, I have not been lawfully arrested. And in Texas...
Go back to some of the federal rulings. I mean, I could pull them up on transportation, but I know you'll probably know them from memory. It goes back to saying, well, the trucks are tearing up our roads. We'll charge them a special tax because the general public paid for these roads because they're engaged in commerce, and that's all they're talking about.
Yeah, Chicago Motor Coach versus state of Illinois. You've got Let's see. We have one out of San Antonio here in Texas that is very clear. I can't remember the site for it, but it says very clearly that all of the roads in the state belong to the people, and we have every right to use them with the common conveyances of the day, including an automobile.
Well, that's why they're trying to tell farmers now they can't drive down the side of the road with federal regulations, because they want to abridge that common right of people using the shoulders. Well, that's the Chisholm Trail. I-35 out there was made by people driving cattle. Humans have a right, especially in agriculture, to move down the road.
That's true. But again, this federal incursion into the states is our fault. It's our fault because we're not resisting it. We're not resisting it by going after our representatives that are allowing and giving permission for the federal government to do these things. The people that say they're there to represent us are not representing us. It's just that simple. Can we fix this politically? Doubtful. Why? Because all the politics is bought and paid for already.
But some of it we are reversing. Take Perry with the NAFTA highways. That got exposed and stopped, most of it. His Gardasil, he said it's the law, you will take it, and the legislature called him. I mean, some of this stuff, they're getting so bold that it's going to bring them down.
That's true. But again, as the general public, we have to be knowledgeable about what these people are doing. We need to be as knowledgeable about the laws of our state as they are. So when they violate them, we know exactly where to go after them.
Okay. We're driving down the road. Again, I'm going to have you back in the near future on the show tonight. We can talk for 10 hours. But there's so much to talk about. But let's say I'm driving down the road, or you're driving down the road, and you're going 6 miles over the speed limit, and I turn my lights on, you pull over on the right-hand side, and I come over and I say, license and registration, please. Not that they ever really say please anymore. And then where do you go from there? And then 2 minutes later, I say, mind if I search your vehicle?
Okay. In my class that I teach down at Brave New Books, I have 3 set questions we ask and 3 set actions that follow. First question is what is the emergency and how can I help? We're not going to presume under any circumstances we've done anything wrong because we're not in transportation. So the laws they're using to pull us over for speeding or anything else don't apply. Second question is am I under arrest? Third question is, am I free to go? You cannot get the same answer to question 2 and 3. If you do, something's wrong. We ask those questions to specifically make the record known that we are in a custodial arrest and we know it. This automatically invokes our right to remain silent, not to testify against ourselves, so on and so forth. The courts have adjudicated that aspect very clearly. Very few people realize that Texas law specifically creates the instance of a custodial arrest the moment an officer pulls you over for the express purpose of issuing a citation. Chapter 543, Transportation Code, dictates very clearly that the arresting officer can only release the person arrested from custody if the person will sign the promise to appear on the citation. Otherwise, the officer is required by law to take the person immediately before a magistrate. They never do these things. They'll threaten you.
And this is the law.
This is the law. It is right.
I mean, they're so busy always throwing the book at us for nothing. They're just violating it up one side and down the other.
Correct. And that's very rarely why in these wins in court you were talking about that I ever have to go to merits of the case. Why? I will never address the merits of a case that have outstanding due process violations. And at a minimum, the moment a police officer pulls you over on the side of the road, he will commit a minimum of 5 due process violations before that stop ends.
But that's just like them now putting GPS on tens of thousands of people's cars with no warrant. And the courts are saying, yeah, we can do that now. Or the iPhones, the government dialing and enlisting without warrants. They just do it. Or now trying to put tags on all the license plates. I mean, this is 1984. And just 10 years ago, everybody's like, oh, that'll never happen. Now that it's happening, you said a lot of police you talk to, and same with me. A lot of them are good people, and they know stuff's wrong. They don't have all the nuances. They know more than the public, but they haven't really studied it. And, I mean, I challenge them to study just basic history. This is bona fide illegal garbage. Every time the government spies on you without a warrant, it's a felony, state and federal. I can pull it up for people. I mean, this is a big deal. You're going to commit all these felonies. I mean, cops ask they want to search my car, and I'm like, number one, you're not an idiot. Do I look like I use your illegal products? And they start getting mad, and I say, what? The government's been caught over and over again dealing drugs. You make me sick. I mean, what do you say to them when they want to search your car?
Well, if they're going to search my car, they're going to have to break into it. On a traffic stop, the very first thing I do is pull into a private parking lot, not the side of the road. I go onto some piece of private property. I immediately get out of my car, lock the doors, and throw the keys into the front seat. I keep a spare door key in my wallet, which he doesn't have to know. But the only reason they can search your car on a traffic stop is if you are in it. And the courts have ruled over and over again they can do that as a general search of the passenger and driver compartment area to ensure that you don't have access to a weapon that could harm the officer. By getting out of the car, locking the door, and putting the keys inside, you remove any possibility whatsoever of having an access to a weapon inside that car if there even is one. Therefore, you remove any viable explanation the officer could have for conducting a search without a warrant. That's my practice and policy, and it's what I've done every time I've been pulled over. And so far, they will not get a warrant. They cannot hold you to call a drug dog in unless they show up during the period of time when they're actually working on issuing the citation. Then they can take the time to run the dog around the car. Having worked in law enforcement, I know when they key the dog to make him react.
I've talked to cops who admit that Flash will always do it for a biscuit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, the things they do in order to find some reason to terrorize the public, a lot of these officers, is astounding. It really, really is.
I only acquiesced once when I was on the radio in about 45 minutes. I was only halfway there, and they pulled me over on 183 back when I was 15 years ago up there. And they wanted to search my Tahoe, and I said, no, I don't authorize it. He said, well, I'm going to get a dog. And I looked at my watch, and I said, okay, go ahead, but I'm doing this under duress because I got to get to work. And I said, I don't use your products. And he kind of, as soon as I let him, he just left. And I understand, as soon as I said he could, he didn't want to search it then. And I know cops are actually fighting real criminals all day. So they get this idea of, well, we'll just violate things because we're doing good. But that's how they build these tyrannies. That's how, it's this excuse of we're going to get at the job. I saw somebody comment on my website about warrantless checkpoints, and they said, it was obviously a cop, we're fighting crime and nothing will stop us from getting to the bad guys. And it's nothing like those mindless Dudley Do-Rights whose supervisor's probably dealing cocaine and they don't even know it. I mean, these guys are just, in your experience, from what I've seen, some of the best well-meaning people, goody two-shoe types, are some of the dumbest and most dangerous because they just absolutely believe they're in the right.
That's very true. It's very true. It's all about education, and it's all about the education they didn't get. A lot of these people are chosen because they've been immunized against violations of people's rights. They've been immunized against violence and so on and so forth. So they have a particular mindset about them that allows them to excel in these particular positions. There are many of these people that are there for the ego trip, the power that it gives them, so on and so forth. And then there are those that are genuinely there for the purpose of serving and protecting the public. The day I met you down at the Capitol, I was actually in the process of talking to numerous DPS officers down there about the traffic statutes themselves. And one of the things in the traffic seminar that we sell on Rule of Law Radio is that the book is written entirely about how to read, understand, and research statutory law. We use the Texas traffic statutes expressly for that purpose. And I was explaining to them about what the mission of the DPS is. In Texas, the DPS's mission is strictly to supervise traffic on rural highways and to supervise and regulate, emphasis on regulate, meaning license, registration, insurance, and all this, commercial and for-hire traffic. Now, that's not you and me.
And that, by the way, that's the law. I've read it.
Yeah.
Because you tell police officers are like, no. I'm like, would you please read your own penal code? We'll be right back. We'll do an extra segment of Overdrive. We'll take some calls as well. Finish the story when we get back.
Introducing a diabetes...
Yeah, it seemed like yesterday that we had a Bill of Rights and Constitution and the people had common sense and defended it. But it was long ago. Yeah, it was lovely. It was wonderful, but we gave it up for the New World Order and dead factories and families breaking up and hyperinflation and wars. We gave it up for a bunch of football teams run by child perverts. God, how did we ever get to this point? We're going to go back to Eddie Craig here for this segment. The main show will end. We'll do a few minutes of Overdrive. It'll be on the nightly news tonight at prisonplanet.tv, 7 o'clock. We've got a special report on the history of these pedophile guilds and government universities, you name it. You don't want to miss it tonight. It's going to be a very, very informative, 7 o'clock Central. I want to tell you about a few sponsors that made today's show possible. One of them is eFoodsDirect.com. They've got the highest quality storable foods out there. They're the biggest outfit in the country. They were telling me how other big national host companies that were calling them, asking them to package their food for them. Well, this is new, high-quality food. This is where I get my storable foods after deep research. eFoodsDirect.com/Alex. They got a bunch of holiday specials, giant discounts, free samples, you name it. The letter E, foodsdirect.com/Alex, or banners at Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com. And these crazy times, folks, it's time to get storable food, and so you're not dependent on the system. 800-876-0871, 800-876-0871. Give them a call today. And finally, supernaturalsilver.com. Don't let the cold and flu season catch you off guard. Keep your family healthy this year with Supernatural Silver. This patented new technology is scientifically supported and extremely safe, according to the information they have on their site. Go look at it for yourself. It's amazing. Boost your immune system, avoid germs, and be prepared for any emergency with Supernatural Silver at supernaturalsilver.com. Again, that's supernaturalsilver.com to take control of yourself and those you love's health. That's supernaturalsilver.com. Eddie, you were mentioning rule of law. When a lot of times when I'm driving home at night at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I always enjoy listening to you. And you're winning court cases, doing a lot of other stuff. Tell folks about the website, and they can find more there, archives of the show.
Yes, they can. Our website is ruleoflawradio.com. There is an archive section there on the top banners on the left side. You can go in there and listen to all of our past and previous shows. We are also going to be linking up my traffic seminar material and everything with endlessfrauddetection.com. We're actually starting a new venture where we are going to be directly assisting people with private investigations for a small fee into their traffic citation so that they can get a certified notice to take to court that the traffic citation was issued fraudulently and in error.
Good. And we're almost out of time for the official show. What was it you were talking about before we went to break and I said you'd finish?
The DPS officers down.
Yeah, you're talking. I was like yelling at them and stuff and very angry because, get the courage up to go storm the Capitol. And a lot of them afterwards were like, no, we agree with you. I mean, I guess they don't like their wives being groped either.
That's true. And these officers were actually very receptive to the information that I tell them about the traffic statutes and so on and so forth. A lot of them have received generic training on the issues, but nothing specific, and they'll admit to that. And just so you know, officers out there and attorneys, my seminar book and material is absolutely free to police officers of any kind and to attorneys. Why? Because I'd rather you actually knew the law you're working under for the benefit of the people rather than the revenue officers you've become.
Well, that's what's amazing. A lot of the time they think they're following a law that doesn't exist, and they're actually breaking laws.
That's true. They're actually violating many more laws than they're actually preventing the alleged violator from committing. One traffic stop citation for speeding versus 5 due process violations in that stop alone. How many different laws did the officer break?
Yeah, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
Or 5 wrongs don't make a right.
Very well put.
Amazing. We're going to go to break here. Official transmission is going to end right now for AM and FM stations. I'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. But we're going to come back, take a few calls, caller who's holding, and a few others. But, Eddie, do you think people are starting to wake up?
I think they are. We just need to increase the number.
That's right. We're starting to turn the corner, but not fast enough. We'll be right back. Stay with us. I want to take a few calls from folks that are holding. I wish I could get to everybody, but we can at least get to who was the last caller I was talking to, and I said I'd go back to him? Yeah, that was Clayton, and then I'm going to try to jam in Pete and Kevin. Real fast, Clayton, go ahead.
And the next thing I want to bring up is to tell your congressmen, senators, and representatives to vote no on the Stop Online Piracy Act. It is bill number H.R. 3261. It is the internet kill switch.
No, they have Congress people admit it. I've scanned over the bill. It just says no due process, no nothing. They just take down websites, whole networks. Just corporation ask, your rights are gone. I mean, they are globally getting rid of due process everywhere.
So yeah, I want to bring that. I want to bring that up, and then also what I wanted to bring up as well is that how you talk about Child Protective Services breaking up families. I actually witnessed that growing up, so I know exactly how that goes.
And again, they're the investigator, so the smart pedophiles go and get that job, and then it's almost impossible for them to get caught. And it's come out over and over again, though. It is just a nest of perverts. Unbelievable scum. Even if they were good people, who would want to be breaking up families and all that and see that every day? That'd be hard to handle. I mean, something's wrong. TSA people, something's wrong with you if you'll grope people all day long. I mean, oh, man, I tell you. I mean, if I was in a supermax prison, I would want to grope killers. This is not a job I want. Something's wrong with those people. Something's wrong with them. I appreciate your call. Kevin in Florida, you're on the air. Eddie, jump in anytime you want. Go ahead, Kevin, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex, listen, I've got some insight for you that you're probably not going to hear from some other people. I want to speak to the sexual abuse, the Penn State fiasco. You know, I was a child of very severe sexual abuse at the hands of an older man. I was sexually abused on numerous occasions, but in this particular instance, it was when I attended a private military academy. And the point that I want to make here is 2 points. One is the fact that what has to be done is you cannot put male authority figures, particularly men that are in prominent positions, in charge of little boys, because it almost seems inevitable. Whether that seed was already in them, Alex, or whether that seed grows as a result of being surrounded by nothing but little boy flesh, eventually the monster comes out. Now, in my case, I was at a military academy. There was an upper school and a junior school. I was in the junior school. There was one man responsible for 30 to 40 military cadets, all boys, and we were grades 5th through 8th grade. This one man was responsible every single year for 20 to 50 kids in his little junior school. And no one ever overlooked, him or what he was doing. And in my case, there were instances where there were other faculty members, there were innuendos, there were rumors that would go around saying, we're not sure about this.
Whatever happened to just Texas justice? Because, I was a vicious at like 13 years old. And I'm not, it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not. I'm actually ashamed of it. But if somebody did something like that, first time they turned around, it's ball peen hammer. I'm sorry. I think it gets back to we've become domesticated. People used to be real polite, especially in the South, because you did somebody wrong, their family's going to kill you. And I'm not calling for any of that, but I think this has all gotten out of control because people, a long time ago, if you cheated somebody in business, they were going to kill you. So people didn't cheat in business. Eddie, you got any comments on that?
Yeah, we're being bred to the point of not to challenge any type of authority figure of any kind for any reason. And I agree it's bad.
Well, sir, call me back sometime. I want to hear more about this. It's so alien for me. I just don't but these people are in positions of power. We'll see you back tomorrow, 11 a.m. and tonight, 7 o'clock, prisonplanet.tv. God bless you all.